Good morning, everyone. It is Wednesday, November 3rd, 2021. Got a couple new pieces that I picked up over the week, and these came from SD Bullion. I do order from them quite frequently. This is a kilo bar, 1 kilo. I picked up two of these. Got more stuff in there, but and this one I've had for a while. This is a 5 ounce, but I kind of just have it here so we can get for those of you that don't have any kilo bars, so that way you can see just the scale, the size comparison of how massive this piece is. This is pretty heavy. It is, I believe it is about 32 ounces. And of course, this one is 5. What's neat about SD Bullion is if you can send them a check, or if you can pay with a debit card, I think. You have to, you know what? I shouldn't even be talking about it because I don't know all the details. But if you can basically pay for it up front, you get a little bit of a discount. So you get a little discounted price. If you're using credit, then they up the price a little bit. It's not even that much. So if you don't have like cash, you can pick up one of these on credit and you don't pay taxes, and you can just pace yourself over time. All you pay is the interest, but that's not the SD Bullion. That's to your banks that are gouging you. Anyway, so that might not be such a good idea. Anyway, these are very quickly becoming some of my favorites. They come in this neat little bag. This is from the Scottsdale Mint. These are the Tombstone Silver Nuggets, and it's got like a authenticity card. So there it is. Very cool. Anyway, that's really all I have. I have two of these and two of these. So that's what's in here, but nothing you haven't seen before. It comes with they send you like a little some reading material, but I never read it. You'll have to order from them to get a copy of it and see what it says. Anyway, there's a lot going on in this world. So I guess we're no longer using the word transitory, and I do want to do a video. I'm curious to see how often this transitory word was being used prior to March of 2020. Just the usage of such word, because I consider myself pretty proficient in the English language. It's not my first language. Those of you who know me, my first language is Spanish. But transitory, that word, in all my years, I'd never heard it. I'd never used it. And I went to college. I got to listen to some very, very smart people, and a lot of people that think they're smart. I had to read a lot of books. Never came across that word, not that I recall. Not until the inflation, and not until the government, the chairman of the Fed, not until these people responsible for all this inflation were forced to acknowledge that, yeah, we're having inflation, and they threw in that word transitory just not to alarm people. Anyway, that was the first and only time that I heard that word. And it's almost like if you're watching the news, they're all using the same word, transitory, like, and that kind of trips me out. It's like they don't know how to come up with a word of their own. Like they're all reading from the same script. And I know what some of you might be thinking, but I believe they are reading from the same script. They are being told what to say. They don't really report the news, they report what they are told to report, which is different. And I have this thing that I say, and there's some truth to it. It's not entirely true, but there is a lot of truth to it. It's perception is reality. And what that means is that if you can, it doesn't matter what you say. I'll give you an example. So if you're if you're trying to getting good with your in-laws, right? And they don't really like you. It doesn't matter what you say, because studies have shown that from everything that you say, people really only retain about 15% of that. And then they'll say, well, action speaks louder than words. Well, what you do also matters. I don't want to say it doesn't, but not as much as you think. Not as much as we would like to think. It should matter more, is what I'm saying. It doesn't. So if what you say doesn't matter and what you do doesn't matter, then what does matter? Maybe it's what they hear. Not necessarily. Because sometimes there could be miscommunication. Somebody says something, the person listening hears something slightly different. You ever played that game Telephone when you were a kid? I think they call it Telephone, where we did an experiment when I was in the 6th grade, and the teacher whispered something, a phrase, into one of the kids' ears, and then they had to repeat the phrase, and they had to whisper it all the way across the classroom. We got in a big circle, and then the last person had to reveal what was said to them. And of course, by the time the message gets repeated 30 times over again, it's completely different. It resembles nothing to the original message. And that's miscommunication. Every time a message travels from one person to another, it can change a little bit or a lot of it. Who knows? Depending on the person, I guess. Depending on the two people involved. In any case, what they hear matters, but not as much as what they believe. And belief comes from perception. So if you believe that something is good, or if you believe that something is reality, and I use this example a lot, the allegory of the cave, which was written by Plato 2,500 years ago. If you perceive something to be good, and that's what the popular opinion is, then that's pretty much what it is. Like, it's going to be very hard to dispute that or to convince someone otherwise. For many hundreds and hundreds of years, we had this thing called the Ptolemaic, I don't even know if I'm saying it right, Ptolemaic system, which means, and this was an Egyptian belief, There were a lot. The name Ptolemy was very, very popular for the Egyptians many, many centuries ago. So if you Google that name, there's actually like 10 of them that became very, very famous. And anyway, I'm talking about the astronomer, the guy that studied the skies, the philosopher, that guy. So he had this idea that the Earth was the center of the solar system, and that the sun and all other planets revolved around the Earth. And there were circles. Everything was a circle, not an ellipse or an oval or anything of a different shape other than circles. There were perfect circles, and the Earth was at the center. And everything revolved around the Earth, including the sun. Anyway, so that is perception. For hundreds of years, people believed that that's the way the solar system worked. It wasn't until Copernicus came along, and then later on Galileo obviously was able to use telescopes, or spyglasses is what they called them back then. And that's a whole nother story. But he was able to change perception, and it didn't happen right away. Actually, he got in a lot of trouble for trying to do that, which is weird. Isn't it interesting how if you go against popular opinion or the mainstream narrative, even if you have evidence, even if you have written, documented, undeniable proof. Galileo wrote a book in which he wrote down his observations. He documented the. I'm trying to remember here. This is all by memory, by the way. I did not plan on saying any of this. He documented the phases of Venus, like you know how it turns into a crescent, a waxing crescent, waning crescent. Just like the moon, the phases of the moon, but he did that for Venus. He was able to document that the moon had like craters and mountains, mountainous terrain on the moon. Up until then, everybody thought that the moon was a perfect disk, smooth, no imperfections, no valleys, no hills, none of that. It was just a perfect sphere, like a billiard ball. And then he was able to document that Venus circled around the sun. And what else? Oh, he also was able to observe and document the 4 moons of Jupiter. I know there's like 30 of them, but back then all that was visible were 4, and that they circle around Jupiter. So anyway, this went against the mainstream narrative back then, that everything circled around the Earth, that the moon was perfect. So basically, when he observed that Venus circled around the sun, that became kind of conflicting. When he documented that the moons of Jupiter circled around Jupiter, that was kind of conflicting. The Pope didn't really like that. He was put on house arrest. He got in a lot of trouble. Anyway, real interesting story. You guys should check it out. Give me a thumbs up. Leave me a comment if you'd like me to do a video on that. But anyway, talking about perception, it wasn't until many, many, many decades later that it became just an accepted idea that this is the way things are. And then that became the new perception. And then, of course, later on, we had some more discoveries, and we learned more of through telescopes and all modern technology, we were able to learn more about the solar system, and little by little, our perception keeps changing. And anyway, so my whole point, there is a point to this whole story. Whatever you see on the news, they're trying to control the perception, because perception is reality. They're hoping that you are going to ignore your own personal observation, the facts that you are seeing in front of you. They're hoping that you will ignore that if they tell you enough times, if you hear it from enough news sources, that this is all transitory. So they're not saying it's transitory anymore, by the way. Now they're saying it's going to last a little bit longer than they expected, but inflation is actually good. It's good that the price of gasoline has almost doubled in the last year. It's good that the price of fruits and vegetables, the price of food is going up. Oh, no, they'll say, I heard this thing the other day where they said, if you exclude like the cost of energy and most of the common foods, there really hasn't been a whole lot of inflation. It's like, well, what's the point if you're only gonna factor in things that you never use? Then that's not really an accurate barometer now, is it? Anyway, I'm sure you guys are tired of looking at my kilo bar. I'm gonna put it away, and it's almost time for me to get to work. I'm actually at work here. Well, it's like 6:20 in the morning, so I need to go and get started. But anyway, thank you guys for listening to me ramble. We're up to like 125 subscribers. I'm thinking of doing some kind of special promotion, like a giveaway, when I reach a certain goal. I'm not sure what it is. Anyway, something I need to think about and put together, but the channel's growing. I'm excited. Anyway, stay tuned. I'm starting to read a little more. This is my book that I started, The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy. Anyway, so I'll share some little bits and pieces of info that I get from that. And yeah, this video's gone on 17 minutes. Thank you guys if you made it to the end. Thank you for listening. We'll see you on the next one. Y'all have a great day.